Hello, my book lovers. How are you guys doing? I'm doing good, doing well. Very, very busy. Busy girl. But I wanted to make a video, let you guys know what I've been reading lately. I guess you wouldn't call this an actual October wrap up. I'm going to call this a since last time I checked in wrap up. That's what I'm going to call this. Because I'm going to talk about all the books that I have read thus far since my last wrap up, which was in September. The reason I'm doing this, just because. Because I feel like it's too late to technically have an October wrap up, but it's obviously too early to have a November wrap up. So I'm going to have a so far wrap up. My name is Kendra. This is Readworthy. If you like what you are hearing or you're being entertained by me by any means, please subscribe, hit the like button, do all the buttons, and I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. If this is you're returning to me, welcome back. I'm glad to see ya. And let's talk about the books that I have read thus far. I got my little drink here. I'm ready to go. If you watched my very previous last video, the TBR thing, I've already read some of those books. So yay me! Look at me and my goals. I'm making them. Anyway, we'll get to those when we get to those. But first book that we're going to talk about is called To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. And this is a classic. Pretty sure this was a must-read kind of thing when I was in school. And now it's like on a list. It can be on. It depends what list you pull up. But it's on one of those banned books list. And whatever. So anyway, this is about a girl named Scout. Her brother and her father are what I would consider the main characters. Her father is a lawyer, and he is defending a black man for raping a white woman. This is set way back in the day where pretty much the man would have been screwed. Her father, the lawyer, is defending him, is a big deal. Not only that, but they are in a very small town, so everybody knows everybody, and everyone gives opinions on how they feel about the fact that her father is defending this man. And so it's a very, very strong, hard-hitting story, and I enjoyed it immensely. I tried to read this book the first time. Well, I read it a long time ago, but doing a reread now, I try to reread it physically instead of audiobook. And this time around, I don't know if it's just they're Southerners, and so there's a lot of broken English and a lot of stuff like that happening in this book written that way, and it was really hard for me to I guess I could call it getting into the book or reading the book, I don't know. But I went ahead and autoed instead, and that was a vastly better experience for me. But I really enjoyed this book a lot. I gave this obviously 5 stars. It's a classic for a reason. If you are into classics at all, or you want to start getting into classics at all, this is a great book. So you should totally pick it up. Okay? So next one. The next book that I read, I don't physically own. I read it for a book club pick, and it's Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. I don't pronounce words very well. So, but it's called Just Like Home. It is a horror book. I read this back in the very beginning of October, so it was very fitting. It deals with a woman whose father was no longer around, and her mother is dying pretty much at an old age. And so she goes back to her childhood home. She has very bad memories of this home, and for good reason. So her going back is a very hard thing for her to do, but she goes back because her mother has literally asked her to, and her mother never asks for help, nor does she reach out to her daughter ever. So this is a big deal, and so she knows that, so she goes back to help her mother situate everything before she dies. It has 2 timelines. It has the timeline when she's a kid and going through the tragic stuff. It goes to that timeline, and then it's in the present timeline where she is, trying to take care of a mother and the actual house, getting it prepared to, sell because she doesn't want to keep it. So she's like, gotta get rid of this thing. So, and it went into a turn I did not expect. I did not see it coming. It was interesting. I gave this book 3 stars. There were times I was just like, okay, can we just keep going, please? But there were times that I was creeped out. In the end of this book, when I finished reading it, I was like, what the hell did I just read? It was a decent book. It was decent. So the next book that I read is called The Maid. Nita Pose?
Today, Junior?
Don't get on to me. I promise it's not on purpose. This is her debut novel. It is great, especially for being a debut novel. Like, I didn't know that going into this book, nor did I know that going through it. Like, I never had the experience of this must be her first book, because this is kind of like sloppy, or this, there's holes in this, or whatever it is. I really enjoyed this book a lot, and I am looking forward to when she comes out with more. There's a lot of markings in here. I do these little metal markings. I've talked about them before in other videos. Anyway, there's a lot of them in here because there were a lot of entertaining sections. There were a lot of, I had all kinds of experiences when I was reading this book. So I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. It is about a maid who works at a hotel. She's a hotel maid. She is very particular. There is something different about her, but if I remember correctly, they never tell you what it is. But I loved her. I loved her so much. I loved the main character. Molly. Molly's her name. Molly the maid. Which is talked about also in this book. She's like, yes, I get it. Molly the maid. Ha ha ha. So she obviously heard it herself. So anyway, it's a running joke throughout the book. It was very entertaining. It is a kind of like whodunit kind of a book. She goes into a hotel room to clean it, and the man that is renting that hotel room, he's dead. He's an extremely rich man. He has a ex-wife and a daughter and a couple sons. He also has a new wife who is much younger than him. So all kinds of, people to suspect. She's thrown into this situation, and, you're seeing it through her point of view. Like I said, it was pretty humorous in many parts, and the twists at the very end were great, and I enjoyed it. I gave this book 4 stars. It's good stuff. So the next book that I read was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I've read a book from her before, The Paris Apartment, the newer one that came out this year, for a book club pick. And I enjoyed myself, but I wasn't the hugest fan of that book. But I know a lot of people like Lucy Foley a lot, and so I wanted to read another one of hers to see if I would enjoy it more. And I did. I gave this one 4 stars. It's about a wedding in that it's in the middle of an island, Ireland. Obviously, someone ends up being dead. The way it's told, the way the story is told, there is so many unanswered questions. You don't even know who's dead. You know that there is a possibility of someone being dead, but you have no idea who. And it's told in 2 timelines. So the timeline of all these guests showing up at the island and them getting to the point where there is a body discovered part. And then there's a timeline of these guys, because what happened is someone rushes in and is like, oh my God, there's a dead body out there. And then there's a bunch of guys that are like, oh, I'll go check it out. It's told through them trying to, because there's a big storm, so it's just them trying to find this body and their feelings about that and the way that they are trying to figure out what this lady was talking about. So there's those 2 timelines. Anyway, it's good. It's really good. A lot of people complain that these people are god awful, and they can be. They kind of are. There's a few of them that I don't find god awful, but I enjoyed it. I liked it. I knew that they were supposed to be god awful. They were written that way. So if they're written that way, why are you upset with that? So I was auto booking this, and I was physically reading this at the same time. This is the next one I was going to talk about, called You're Invited. And this is also about a wedding and a bunch of characters. And this girl, used to be best friend back in the heyday, is getting married to her ex-boyfriend. And her whole mission is to stop the wedding. I mean, there's some god-awful people in this one, too. And actually, the people that are god-awful in this one are way worse than the people in this one. So, if you don't like that in this, don't read this, because this is worse. These people are way worse than this one. I gave this one 3 stars and this one 4 stars. I just like the way that the story was told in this one more so than this one. In this one, the bride is gone missing in the very beginning, like you know that from the get-go. There's no body or anything, it's just the bride went missing. And so they believe it was because of this main character. She's the odd one out. There's a detective, it's like a private detective, like someone that the family has hired because they don't want to involve the police just yet. I don't know why. It's like her doing interviews to like talk to all the characters, and then like you go back to the timeline of, so I guess there is 2 timelines, and it goes back to the timeline of her like getting up to that wedding. So this one more focuses on one character, and then later down the road other characters' point of views come into play. And this one, like the point of view constantly changes, and I think that's what I found more entertaining out of this one than this one. I just thought it was funny that I was reading pretty much the same book by 2 different authors at the same time. I didn't get confused though of which book I was reading, so that was good at least. But I gave this one 4 stars. I gave this one 3 stars. They're both good thriller books. Recommend both of them. Okay? Okay, so the next book that I picked up, the Remnant Chronicles, book 1 and 2, and I was very eager to read book 3, but I wanted to audiobook it, even though I physically own it, called The Beauty of Darkness. And the reason I wanted to audiobook it because I was enjoying my audiobook experience with this book. And the first 2 were not hard to get a hold of at all, but this one, there was I had to put a hold on it, and the hold took forever, and I was next in line. Someone hurry up and finish your book because it's my turn. So I might have been a little impatient with that, but it was worth the wait because I gave this book 5 stars. It was a great ending. I love this book immensely, and I still love the main character. She's fantastic. And I like the 2 men in this book, the 2 side men, whatever you want to call them. There's like a little love triangle that happens throughout this whole series. I like those 2 guys. They're very smart. They're very independent on their own. They don't, like, it doesn't go through the whole, like, you know, the woman has to look strong, so I have to look weak situation, which I hate. The woman is fantastic as well. Everyone is fantastic. I love this series so much. And when my little girl becomes a teenager, this will be one of the first series I would want her to read, because she is a great role model. My God. She is a great role model. I'm not going to tell you too much about what happens because this is the 3rd of the series, but let me just tell you that it ends fantastically. I enjoyed it immensely. 5 stars. The series is 5 stars. It's a great series. You should pick it up. So I've already talked about this in another video. It was a readathon, and the first one that I read was Jurassic Park. And the second one I read, I do not physically own, called The House of Hunger. And the Jurassic Park one, well, I gave 5 stars. I loved it. Again, if you want to know my thoughts, go to that video. I'm going to put a little, I guess, forgive me notice in here, because in those videos, I was very, very harsh on the little girl that is in this book. And my sister was very quick to correct me.
You suck!
And I don't know how I missed it. I guess it's because I've watched the movie so much that I just assumed, like in my head, I was like, okay, the girl is older than the boy. Boom, done. But in the book, it is told that the girl is younger. She's like 7 or 8 and the boy is 11. I don't know if I like deleted that out of my head or what, but when I read through this whole book, assuming the girl was older than the boy, and I talked about how annoying and much of a brat the girl is, and that the boy is much more like enjoyable to read about. which I still stand by the fact that she's like a little jerk. But she's a lot younger than she is in the movie. And she's just as annoying in the movie as she is in the book. But it's not like just because she's older in the movie that makes her less annoying. She's just more helpful in the movie. I will take back a little bit of the annoyance because, I mean, she's young, she's a young kid. I know now she's younger, okay? So if you've not watched the video, just remember that I did not have that stuck in my head when I was telling you about this book in that video. And if you've already watched that video, please forgive me for being such a jerk towards a little 7-year-old who is still annoying. But I guess that might have been the point. Anyway, I really liked this book though a lot. I gave it 5 stars and I couldn't wait to continue with the series, which, spoiler alert, I did already read the next book, which we'll get to. And then the next one that I read for that readathon is House of Hunger. I gave this book 4 stars. I really, really liked it. Again, all my thoughts about that book is in that video. Go watch it. It's fantastic. I'm so much fun to listen to all times of the day. So the next one that I went into was The Patient by Jasper DeWitt. I liked this little novella for what it was. It is about a guy who is a doctor who goes to a psych ward. He just got out of medical school, so he thinks he's, badass. And he wants to take care of the patient that no one wants to take care of. He wants to, solve this issue. In everyone else's mind, this guy is seriously messed up, and he seriously messes with your head. And if you deal with this guy at all, you pretty much want to kill yourself. He's almost like he who must not be named. Again, this is a little novella, so I'm not going to say too much after that, but it was good. I gave this book 4 stars. I liked the ending a lot. I wasn't expecting a lot of things in this book. When they were pumping up this, before the doctor goes in and talks to this patient, everyone's like, don't do it. Oh my God, this guy's evil. Read his backstory and these medical records. You'll see how bad he is. And he has to get approvals from other doctors to be able to even talk to this man. So I'm like, oh man, this is going to be good. And then that scenario happens and I'm like, well, that's not what I expected. And then other things happen of why this patient is the way he is. And I was like, oh, that wasn't expected either. So the novella had a punch, let me just say that. So it's good. And it won't take very long to read. So you should read it too. Okay, so then we got into November. So scary stuff should be set aside. I mean, in my head, that's how it works. And I moved on to, devastating crybaby stuff. Because I read Kristen Hanna's The Four Winds. I was like, you know what? I'm done being creeped out. Let's go ahead and have a big old cry fest. So that's what I did. Because not only did I read Kristen Hanna's The Four Winds, but then I went ahead, because of that TBR video, if you watched it, I went ahead and read Kristen Hanna's Fly Away. Let's really pack a punch. Make sure I really tear up. So The Four Winds is about the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression and all that stuff. And it's about a woman having to deal with that with 2 kids and a husband that's not very helpful, and it's her life. It's told by 2 point of views. In the very beginning, it is told by the main woman, the mother. And then when the little girl that she has it comes to play and also is a little older, it's from her point of view as well. And her experiences as a kid dealing with all this stuff. It's so great. Oh my God. I loved this book so much. I gave this book 5 stars. It is so good. And I definitely suggest you read it. Because I had this book because is that what's called? The Nightingale?
5 minutes later.
So The Nightingale was my first Kristen Hanna book. And I loved that book. And I've read the first book to this little duology, Firefly Lane. So I already knew that I liked her as an author. For whatever reason, I thought The Dust Bowl sounded pretty dang boring. I put this off a lot. Wish I hadn't, because I loved this story a lot. The things that these people had to go through, it was just and it made me want to do some research on the whole scenario of, Oklahoma and Texas and people going to California and trying to get away from this and what that did to California and so forth and so on. And so It was great. It was a great story. I also highly recommend this, which I am kind of surprised. I gave this 4 stars. Fly Away again is connected to Firefly Lane, which is the first book about Tully and Kate and their friendship, and they became friends when they were kids, and them growing up together, and their lives are vastly different, but they are still fantastic friends to each other. That's what the first book is about. And then this book, I'm not going to tell you too much about it because things happen in that first book that if I told you things about this book, it would ruin that first book. Like I said, I love Kristen Hanna, so that wasn't the problem. The problem is that I felt like Firefly Lane ended in a way that really couldn't continue or shouldn't have continued, and I was very wrong. I even started reading this book going, okay, I'm going to read this book, but I'm telling you right now, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. And then I even, probably maybe 100 pages in, I was like, I still don't know why I'm doing this to myself. This is a horrible idea. And then things took a turn, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I read this book. Why didn't I pick it up right after Firefly Lane? Like, this is great. I'm enjoying myself reading this book a great deal, which is kind of odd because it's a very depressing book. If you are in any kind of depression in any way, don't read this book. It is a must read. I enjoyed it immensely, especially if you enjoyed Firefly Lane. Definitely read this book because it is a great companion to that book. Just know that you should read it when you're in a really good frame of mind. But 4 stars, 5 stars, really like Kristen Hanna. Will continue reading her. I have 4 or 5 more books of hers. So like I said earlier in this video, I was like, spoiler warning. I went ahead and continued with The Lost World. I liked this book. I didn't like it as much as I liked Jurassic Park. I gave this book 4 stars, but this is vastly better than the movie. Immensely better. It just is. The Lost World, the movie, okay? They take little bits of what happens in this book out and use it for the movie, but there's a whole different story in that compared to this. And if they had done this, it wouldn't have been a blockbuster, okay, but it would have been a better story. And I'm glad that I watched the movie way ahead of time before I ever picked up this book, because I think I would have been extremely let down by the movie. And I enjoyed the movie for what it was, but this book, so much better. On the first Jurassic Park and the Jurassic Park movie, when you compare them side by side, they're just as, I feel like the movie is just as good for that being a movie, and the book is a great companion to that movie. But this is comparing apples to oranges. This is, yeah, they're both fruit. They're both The Lost World, but this is a whole lot better, let me tell you. So if you enjoyed the Jurassic Park, you should definitely enjoy this book, and you should pick it up. I've got 3 more books to talk about. So these are very, very recent reads, very recent reads. Okay, I just finished this book a couple days ago. The Kiss Curse. This is a companion to the Ex-Hex. I do not call this a It is a continuation, but it's different characters. When I went into this book, I assumed it was about the same characters that were about the Ex-Hex. They're in this book, but these are 2 different man and woman. The 2 from the original are in this book, but they're side characters. They're not as important as these 2 other characters, okay? This is about Gwen and Wells, who are, it's kind of, I guess you could call it, it's more it's not really a hate to love kind of scenario. It's more I'm annoyed by you, and then I love you scenario. So they're both witches, warlock and witch, and they have different point of views of how to live life. They both run retail shops. It's cute. It's a cute book. I gave this 3 stars. It wasn't I liked the Ex-Hex better because I feel like the romance was more, the relationship between the 2 was more built. They had history, so maybe that was the reason why. This was still cute. It just was okay, we're annoyed with each other, and now we love each other. There was no, building to that. Both books are really romance books with a little bit of witch thrown into there. But this one was more the backstory, the secondary story to this romance that was okay. It was just okay. And the way it ended too, I'm afraid that it might continue. And I really don't care. The characters are what sell these books. Okay, if you don't like the characters, you're not gonna like the book because the stories were just okay. Like the actual stories, the plot, it's just okay. So 3 stars. And the 2 that I literally just finished, like I'm talking about yesterday finished, 2 novellas. Again, I talked about these in my TBR, so I'm really doing good with this TBR goals thing. Where the Drowned Girls Go by Shauna McGuire. This one is a continuation of, I forgot what they call these, the Wayward Children series. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 7th in the series, but pretty much it's, you know, these kids who go into a door to another world. All these kids who come back from those worlds and can't function. So they go to this school to help them function. And each book switches. So one is about like a world, and the next book is about the school setting. It's in the setting of the school. This was the setting of a school. I think actually though, this is my favorite of the setting of the schools. I told you in a different video that I really like when they do the world and not so much the school setting books. But I think this is one of my favorites of the school setting books. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to give this book a 4-star, but I really like this series, and I'm glad to see that it's continually on. Like I like all these little stories. They're really cute, and they get me invested very quickly, which they have to because they're like little tiny books. And then the last one that I've just finished reading yesterday is The Artificial Condition, the second in the Murderbot Diaries. This is about a murderbot. Me and my husband argue back and forth, and after reading this book, I kind of have a little bit of leverage. He is saying it's a she, and I keep saying it's a he. And in this book, the murderbot has to act more human. It even says that, you know, it's like when people like scan him or her, the sex is unknown, even when it's trying to be human. Okay, so I feel like it's up into interpretation of whether or not it's a she or a he. He read it as a she. I read it as a he. And not only that, but the second book, because the first one I physically read, and the second book I auto-booked it, and it's a male's voice too. So it even, you know, goes to my side even more so. I like the fact that he's a he more than a she. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that it's the story, it's the continuation of Murderbot. He makes new friends, human and robot alikes, and this, you know, it's just kind of almost like a slice of life in a Murderbot's scenario of being a security bot, pretty much, making sure that humans don't die. It's very sarcastically funny. If you get sarcasm, then you will like these books. If you don't get sarcasm, you might not enjoy them as much. I like it. I like this book a lot. I gave this book 4 stars. I can't remember what I gave the first one, but it doesn't matter. I liked it too. And I will continue this series. It's been a long time since I read the first one, and it didn't hinder me from enjoying this book anymore. I didn't have to go back, for instance, and like try to remember things. This did a very good job with as little as it is. It does a very good job of like reminding you of the past and continuing with the story of the present. I enjoyed it immensely. 4 stars easily. Good stuff. And I will continue with this series. That's it so far. That's all I've read so far. I don't know where I'm at in the aspect. I know I told you that I was going to try to get to, I think it wasn't it 150 that I was going to try to get to? I'm at 127 right now. It probably won't happen. But, you know, whatever. I didn't read any manga. One Piece is what I've been reading. I haven't read any of those, so, you know, I need to pick those back up. I have them. I just need to pick them up. I will do another, I'm not going to obviously, like I said, I kind of talked about all of October, and I also talked about a little bit of November, because we're in the halfway point of November. So I won't be coming out with a, you know, November wrap up. I won't be coming out with one of those. I'll just come up with a end of the year wrap up. How about that? I work in retail, and November and December are very busy. I'm a very busy woman. Doing videos during this time is very hard to get that accomplished. So I don't know how many videos are going to be coming out of me from now until the end of the year. I will come out with the end of the year videos, my favorites of the year and my least favorites of the year. And like I said already, I will do a TBR of finishing up the year TBR kind of thing. From this point into the end of the year, I'll come out with one of those, and I'll come out with, like I just said, the end of the year stuff. But I don't know if there'll be any other videos from then until now. So please be patient with me, and I'll probably see you at the end of the year. Okay, bye.